Hello, it's me, Lauren Cadillac, aka OG Cadillac, aka Mother of the Decade, aka your favorite internet lawyer. I'm coming back to you today to talk about the Department of Justice's report on the conditions in the Fulton County Jail. There's a lot of words. If you have at all followed any of the YSL trial, you will be aware that the Fulton County Jail and its conditions are pretty kind of famously bad. And in fact, if you were watching the opening statements of the Young Thug trial, you heard Max Shard talk about Fulton County Blue and how people do not want to wear Fulton County Blue and how Fulton County is such a terrible place to be in jail. At the time, it sounded a bit like, lawyer dramatics, part of what we do. We puff, we use puffery, we tend to be a bit dramatic, melodramatic, maybe even. Okay. However, after seeing this report from the Department of Justice, we're going to go back. We're going to go over what they found, their findings. After hearing their findings, I see that Max Shard was actually maybe being under descriptive. Maybe he could have described more the atrocities. I mean, maybe not. It sounds like they're pretty terrible to describe. So remember this and keep this in mind as we are watching this video. This is in the United States of America. Okay, Georgia was one of our original states. And this is 2024 USA. It's bad.
The Justice Department has completed a comprehensive investigation into conditions at the Fulton County Jail here in Fulton County, Georgia. Our investigation finds long-standing unconstitutional, unlawful, and dangerous conditions that jeopardize the lives and well-being of the people held there. We cannot turn a blind eye to the inhumane, violent, and hazardous conditions that people are subjected to inside the Fulton County Jail. Detention in the Fulton County Jail has amounted to a death sentence for dozens of people who have been murdered or who died as a result of the atrocious conditions inside the facility.
Okay, these are really dramatic words, right? This is someone who represents the Department of Justice, and she is using these words to describe a jail in which Americans who have not been found guilty of a crime are being held, and a treatment that Americans who are pending a trial are receiving. And these kind of words are appropriate when you're talking about these type of deplorable conditions and American citizens.
It's not just adults, but also young people who are subjected to conditions and treatment that violate the Constitution and defy federal law. Many people held in jails in our country have not been convicted. They are awaiting hearings, trial dates, or are serving short sentences for misdemeanors.
Think about Thug. He was in prison for 2 years while he waited when he was charged until the time that he pled out of his trial. His fellow defendants are still in court, and they are still staying in the Fulton County Jail. They have not been found guilty.
We find that the Fulton County Jail does not adequately protect incarcerated people from violence, such as stabbing, sexual abuse, or even murder. Physical deficiencies in the environment, such as unlocked doors and large holes in the walls, permit and even facilitate the brutality.
This woman just said that the doors are unlocked and there are holes in the wall. What? A jail with unlocked doors? Are you kidding me? No wonder Shannon Stilwell was stabbed.
Incarcerated people use makeshift weapons built out of jail fixtures to attack others, including vulnerable people with mental health needs and 17-year-old young people. In 2023 alone, we identified 314 stabbings and more than 1,000 assaults. This rate of violence exceeds what we've seen in other cities across the country. The Fulton County Jail had as many stabbings in a single month as the Miami-Dade County Jail had all year. And that's a facility with 1.5 times more people.
Okay. I love reality TV, and that's started a long time ago, okay? And I think it started with the show Cops. Do you guys remember Cops? Bad boys, bad boys. Okay, on Cops, you knew a place was bad. In the 80s and 90s, you could determine how dangerous a place was based off how many times you saw it on Cops, okay? When I would watch Cops, Miami-Dade was like every other episode. Okay, it was either Henderson County, like Las Vegas, or Miami-Dade. Okay, like there were sparingly a few counties in between. Miami has 1.5 the amount of prisoners, 1.5 times the amount of prisoners. Okay, so for every 1.5 prisoners in Fulton County, there are 3 in Miami. Okay, and Miami has had as many stabbings in an entire year as Fulton has had in 30 days. That's unbelievable. Like, that is crazy. Miami-Dade is famously dangerous since Cops was like since the 80s. And they have less danger in their jail than you have in Fulton County, Georgia? Are you... Ugh.
Since 2022, 6 people in the jail have lost their lives to violence. I'll walk through additional court findings set forth in the report that we're issuing today. Living conditions at the jail are hazardous and unsanitary. Housing units are flooded from broken toilets. Roaches, rodents, and pests abound. Standing water, exposed wiring, and vermin make living areas unsafe. The jail does not provide enough food, leaving people severely malnourished. The jail fails to provide constitutionally adequate medical and mental health care to people at the jail.
Hold on. So you're going to arrest me on a crime. I'm innocent until proven guilty. Then you're going to hold me in this jail and not feed me?
Exposing people to preventable bad outcomes, including injury, seriousness, illness, pain and suffering, mental health decline, and even death. The lack of security staff and failure to prioritize health services impede access to care. Medical emergencies do not receive appropriate medical responses. People at risk of suicide do not receive sufficient protection, and people with serious mental health needs do not receive adequate treatment. The jail uses solitary confinement, also known as restrictive housing, in discriminatory and unconstitutional ways that expose people, particularly 17-year-olds and people with mental health disabilities, to risk of harm, including acute mental illness and self-injury.
17-year-olds in solitary?
The jail uses lengthy confinement in restrictive housing as punishment without written explanation, which violates due process. As Georgia is one of only 4 states where the juvenile justice system's jurisdiction ends at 16, there are 17-year-old boys and girls also held at the jail. And these 17-year-old boys and girls are exposed to particular harm. The jail does not provide special educational services to 17-year-olds who are entitled to them under a federal law known as the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act.
So the jail, the Fulton County Jail, is breaking the law. So the jail is holding you because you allegedly broke the law, but the jail itself won't even follow the law.
It fails to protect these children from violence, including sexual abuse, and it uses isolation to punish them, which both violates their rights and contradicts clear research that such isolation uniquely harms our young people. The jail staff also uses excessive force. This includes deploying tasers without reasonable cause. For example, detention officers tased a man after he said he felt like hurting himself and needed to see a mental health specialist. Such violations stem from understaffing, poor policies, and lack.
So a dude says, I'm going to hurt myself. And the Fulton County Jail says, no, we got this. We'll do it for you. And they tase him.
Of training and supervisory failures. The summary that I have just shared is harrowing enough, but individual experiences are gut-wrenching. For example, LaShawn Thompson, a black man with serious mental illness, entered the jail on low-level charges and was confined to the mental health housing unit. 3 months later, staff found him dead in his cell, infested with lice, and as a medical examiner concluded, neglected to death.
A grown human infested with lice and neglected to death in the United States of America.
Several months before that, another black man with serious mental illness died after he stopped taking his medication. 2 more black men with mental health disabilities were murdered by their cellmates. Weeks after we opened our investigation, 6 more black men died at the jail. All of this is a racial justice issue.
Within weeks of their opening of the investigation, 6 people were murdered. And she's about to get into the racial. Here we go. This is sick.
91% of the people living in these abhorrent, unconstitutional conditions are black.
91% of the population is black. There's so many layers to that. If 91% of the population had the same color skin as me, these conditions probably would not exist. I think we can all agree to that. But we also need to understand, why is 91% of the arrested population in your county all the same color? Like, that makes no sense to me. Is 91% of Fulton County's population black? I don't think so. So that's why I'm saying there's layers. There's so many layers to this. So you have 16, 17-year-olds entering the Fulton County Jail, young black men, young black women, 91% of them are black, and they're coming into these deplorable conditions. If they're lucky, they'll live through it and they get out. How valuable do you think you could think your life is, though, if your own government treated you that way? I don't know. I don't think you could really see a lot of potential and future in yourself. I think that would be a bit inhibiting. I mean, maybe you could see potential in the future through all of the bullshit, but it sounds like bullshit. It sounds like bullshit, and this is sickening. Oh, she just answered my question. 91% of the jail is black, but only 45% of the entire population overall is black. So what does that tell you?
As compared to 45% of Fulton County's overall population. It's also important to note that the vast majority of the approximately 2,000 people held at the jail have not been convicted of a crime. They are awaiting hearings and have yet to be tried, many of them.
Innocent Americans. Innocent until proven guilty. Americans.
There are also a significant number of people with mental health disabilities. During our investigation, we worked closely with correctional, medical, mental health, and educational experts. We physically inspected the jail and observed housing units. We visited medical and mental health service areas. We reviewed thousands of pages of documents and interviewed dozens of jail staff and leadership. And we listened to the people held inside the jail and their advocates and their family members. We thank officials for their cooperation, and we thank all of those who provided valuable information and whose advocacy predates this investigation. I'll note that officials have taken preliminary steps to improve conditions, but they simply are not enough. We hope our findings report sounds an alarm that will prompt the Fulton County Board of Commissioners and the Sheriff's Office to swiftly implement the comprehensive reforms necessary to ensure constitutional conditions going forward. At the end of the day, people do not abandon their civil and constitutional rights at the jailhouse door. Jails and prisons across the country must protect people from the kind of gross violations and unconstitutional conditions that we have uncovered here. I'll now turn the floor over to U.S. Attorney Buchanan.
they go on to kind of get into a bit more detail, and they eventually say that the leadership of the Fulton County Jail is working with them to eradicate these issues. But the issues, I mean, they say there are holes between cells, like in the walls between cells. There are rats, there's flooding, there's this, there's that. This isn't something you just work on, you know? It's crazy. It's like, why aren't you shutting it down? Why is there not like an immediate shutdown, a relocation of prisoners until you figure your shit out? I would venture to say because 91% of those prisoners are black. I can't think of another reason, honestly. I cannot think of another reason. You know, I am not one for private prisons. I think that's total bullshit. But if this was going on in a private prison and they saw these type of federal and constitutional violations, it would be shut down. Period. You know, the private sector has to follow the Constitution, and the private sector is far more fearful of violating the law than the ones who wrote it and enforce it, as you can see, because Fulton County enforcing their laws is actually breaching the Geneva Convention, for fuck's sake. I mean, people in Guantanamo are treated better and have more sanitary conditions, safer conditions. Hostages, war hostages, criminals of war have better and safer conditions than our fellow Americans. Our fellow Americans. These are our fellow Americans. We are Americans. We should not. If we value life so much in this country, let's put our money where our mouth is. And let's treat people in prisons with dignity and respect, like they're at least human. Because these are inhumane conditions. And now, seeing all this and kind of, I get why everyone took a plea. I get why Thug just went home. You would take a plea too if you are fighting off rats and gang members and fighting for your life every day, and they're not even feeding you. Yeah, okay, I'm taking the plea. Get me out of here. This is not what our founding fathers wanted for us. This is not the America we were promised. This is not justice. This is not acceptable. And I hope my viewers, everyone's watching it, thank you so much. Thank you for hitting like. Thank you for hitting subscribe. I appreciate you for hanging all the way through with me. But I hope that you vote accordingly. All right. Have a good one. We'll see you next time.